Day 19, and I'm exiting Ken Lake Campground. It's a gorgeous day. Got a reservation at 12:30 for a tour of one of the caves. I serviced my chain this morning and ran out of chain wax. So I need to stop at a motorcycle shop today since it's Saturday and a lot of them are not open on Sunday. Lake Barkley. Kentucky farmland. I made a quick pit stop to pick up some chain cleaner and lube. Pretty big motorcycle shop, but it's weird. You go in there and they only had one brand of lube, one brand of cleaner, so it had absolutely no choice in if I wanted to buy it there. I had to get what they sold, so I ended up with some Motul cleaner, which I'm fine with, and then it's PJ1 is the lube, which I've seen before but I've never used, and it's a huge can. Not great for carrying on the motorcycle, but I'm stocked up. Cruising along, making pretty good time. 83 miles to go. Highway 79 in Kentucky. Between the sunshine, perfect temperatures, and great roads, it's been an absolute delight riding this morning. Not a lot of twists and turns, but the roads have been nice and very light traffic. We are going to skirt around the outskirts of Bowling Green. 26 miles to go, 37 minutes. Impressed by the Kentucky road. And Mammoth Caves National Park. It's been 2 years since I've been here. I have a lifetime senior pass to the national parks, which has paid dividends for all the different parks that I've gone through. I've clearly saved more money than it cost me. When I booked the reservation for this tour yesterday, they indicated there was a discount for having a pass, but they didn't provide for it on the website, which I thought was strange. So I got on an online chat last night, and apparently I have to ask for a refund once I can show them the physical pass that I have in my pocket. This looks familiar. Visitor Center. So that Mammoth tour was a nice tour, especially the second half of it. That's where things got interesting. The first half was not terribly impressive. We dropped quite a bit, 250 feet underneath the ground. But the second half is where the stalactites and stalagmites were. I tried to capture on film. It's a big tour group. I still think, in comparing at least that tour of Mammoth Cave to the one that I took down in Alabama, Cathedral Caverns, I would have to say, in terms of visual interest, Cathedral Caverns probably has it beat. I have a stop at a grocery store. It's 3:15 in the afternoon, and an hour and 20-minute ride ahead of me before I get to camp. I'm on Kentucky Highway 436. And the wind has picked up a little, and there's enough open fields. It's battering me around just a bit, but not terrible. Green River Lake State Park. Doing this as a walk-in. I checked last night, they had a bunch of walk-in sites that were open, and you couldn't reserve for them. So I'm hoping, even though it's a Saturday night, that they've got still have spots. Well, I arrived at my campsite. It's kind of an odd layout out here in the field right next to the lake. Full of people. But it'll do this time of day.
A cold dinner, chicken salad croissant, which actually looks pretty good. Sliced fruit, banana, pretzel, that's a change. This is from Kroger, if you can't tell. And strawberry cheesecake for dessert. But for all the other campers here, it'd be a great view.
Good morning. Day number 20. It's a Sunday. Cool start in the 50s. Well, my bike was covered with dew, as you might be able to see. My tent was, so the tent's stuck away wet. Perfect day though. I'm headed north out of Kentucky into Ohio, southern Ohio. Before I leave Kentucky though, there is one more, and I think this is the last one on the trip, National Battlefield. And maybe I should call it a national battlefield. I think it's actually a state park, and it's about an hour away. The visitor center doesn't open until 11, but the grounds are open. So I'm going to just go and see what there is to see, and then head up into this very southern part of Ohio where General Grant was born. And there's a historic home there that's run, I believe, by the state of Ohio that opens at 1. So it's going to take me probably a couple hours to get up there anyways. So that's the plan. And then there's a state park I'm staying at this evening in southern Ohio. So that's Green River Lake State Park. You know you're in farm country when they drive the tractors on the roads. Lebanon, Kentucky, 1815. Same town, Lebanon, but this is more my style for quaint American towns. Isn't that nice? Last night near sunset, I was sitting at a picnic table down near the water, looking at my phone, and a little girl walks up to me with a s'more in her hands. She said, "Mister, would you like a s'more?" And I said, "Well, geez, I already just brushed my teeth for the night," and she looked a little crestfallen. So I said, "But you know what? I can brush my teeth again. That s'more looks pretty good." And you know what? It was pretty good. So She seemed very pleased that I was happy to take that s'more. Little things like that happen on these trips that make it memorable. Aside from the motorcycling and all the historical exhibits and whatever, it's the people. I still say that my interaction with the people is as much what draws me to this activity as anything else. It must have been a little brave on her part, huh? To come up to some guy that hadn't shaved in a couple of weeks, offer him some more. I am in Perryville, and this is where State Park is at the historic battlefield. Perryville Battlefield, State Historic Site. Battle of Perryville, fought on October 8th, 1862, the largest battle fought in Kentucky. 38,000 combatants, 7,000 casualties, of which 1,400 were killed. When the Battle of Perryville ended, hundreds of dead soldiers were left on the battlefield. The Confederates who attacked the Union battle lines lost 532 killed, 2,652 wounded, and 236 missing, for a total of 3,420. Federal losses were just as staggering. The Union Army suffered 899 killed, 2,966 wounded, and 433 missing, a total of 4,298. When adding the number of killed to the wounded who later died, 2,422 men died as a result of the Perryville. Although the Confederate Army won a tactical victory, they were outnumbered and left Perryville that night. In their haste, they left all their dead and most of their wounded lying on the battlefield. Most of the soldiers buried here remain unknown to this day. It is likely that around 200 soldiers are buried in this mass grave. Just give some context for where we are. There's Kentucky. This section here is represented by that. And there's Perryville down towards the south. So we're here and I'm headed in that direction. This battle apparently had 55,000 Union troops and 16,000 Confederates. Although of the 55,000 Union troops were here, only 22,000 were engaged. This was considered apparently the high water mark of the Confederacy in the Western Theater. And while it was a tactical win for the Confederates, they ended up withdrawing south down into Tennessee after this battle because they were greatly outnumbered. So now I'm walking towards the Union line, which would be the Union's left, the Confederates' right. Yeah, they're up on that bluff hill. Manny's attacking Confederates immediately discovered the lethal danger of attacking 8 Union cannon on the top of the ridge in front of you. It's called Parsons Ridge. Some sought cover behind a split rail fence, but the Union artillery shattered rails, killing and wounding scores of soldiers. The Confederate attack slowed and then stopped. With bullets smashing against the remaining wooden rails, the Confederates traded gunfire with Union infantry. As casualties mounted, Southern officers knew that their men had to take the hill. If they attempted to retreat, they would be cut apart by the Union artillery that survived. Urging their men forward, the officers crossed the fence to lead a renewed charge. The intensity of the Union defense atop the steep slope stopped the Confederates again, only halfway to their objective. Lying down to escape the cannon fire, Manny's men desperately loaded and fired their single-shot muskets as best they could. And here's what poor leadership does. Union Brigadier General Terrell was nearly panic-stricken. To his surprise, thousands of Confederates swarmed over the fields in front of you, moving towards the Federal lines. The shouts of attacking Southern troops and the crescendo of gunfire echoed among these hills. Terrell's troops, mostly new recruits, were still maneuvering into position as they faced the terror of their first battle. Terrell ordered 8 cannon on the ridge to fire into the ranks. As the ground shook from the cannon blast, Confederate troops appeared at the split rail fence at the base of the hill. Fearful that his artillery would fall into enemy hands, Terrell ordered a bayonet charge. Why you would do that, I have no idea, by the 123rd Illinois.
It was a poor decision. Outnumbered, they were driven back with heavy casualties. Even with reinforcements, Terrell's inexperienced men could not withstand the persistent Confederate attackers who leapt over the fence. Seasoned by battle, the Confederates determinedly loaded and fired, forcing the Federals from the hill and delivering a brutal initiation to the horrors of warfare. So I'm facing in the opposite direction now, that the Confederates would be moving. As they reached the top of this hill, they watched the fleeing Union soldiers retreat into the valley in front of the hill. Southerners lost hundreds of men killed and wounded during the fight to take the ridge, and their hearts must have sunk when they saw more Federal troop ridges to the west. Ridges out there. Because of Perryville's rolling terrain, Union Army established one defensive position after another, each on a hilltop or ridge. While this hill marked the northern end of the Union battle line, other Federal soldiers arrived in the battlefield and occupied other ridges in front of you. Regrouping, the Confederates charged down the slope towards the new Union lines. Little did they know that 3 hours of intense fighting still remained in a battle that would decide the fate of Kentucky. You can imagine how a split rail fence like this would slow a line of advance of men, even for a minute or two. If you're under fire, it seemed like trying to climb over a mountain. So in front of you would be high corn stalks, brown and dry, obscured among the corn. 663 members of the 21st Wisconsin waited. They were new recruits in the Army for less than a month. They waited in the corn stalks, listening to the battle behind what's now behind me. Then, as the roar of the battle crested the ridge that we were just on, retreating soldiers burst through the corn. While many of the Wisconsin Infantry Regiment had the courage to hold their ground, some of the Wisconsin soldiers blended with the brigades that were fleeing. As the Confederates advanced, Union artillery positioned on the hill in front of you. Again, another really high hill. The Union fired into the advancing Confederates. The Union's wooden sabots fell in the corn, killing and wounding members of the 21st Wisconsin. So they were getting victimized by both their own troops and by the Confederates. With the Union soldiers driven from the cornfield, the Confederates brigade continued their attack towards Starkweather's Hill. All right, so we're going to begin the climb on Starkweather's Hill. So this is the direction the Confederates would be going in, and Union again at the top. Boy, that must have been tough for the Confederates, getting up over one hill and then finding yourself having to confront another one. That had to be demoralizing. So I reached the top of Starkweather's Hill, looking back at Parsons Ridge, first ridge the Confederates took, and I'm facing the direction that the Union would be facing. So their faces and hands begrimed from the smoke of battle and their ears ringing from the constant ripping of musketry, Starkweather's shattered brigade, Union brigade, retreated to the ridge in front of you. So they actually retreated it off of this hill to yet another hill. They had saved half of their cannon by dragging back to the new positions. The Union infantry took cover behind a stone wall that ran across the distant hill. Perryville's rolling terrain allowed the Federals to establish a strong defensive position behind the stone wall. We're going to walk there next. Manny's Confederates regrouped and rushed through the valley. They fought desperately at the stone wall, assaulting it again and again. Finally, a Union counterattack forced Manny's exhausted brigade, now low on ammunition, to retreat back behind this hill, back behind Starkweather's Hill. Both sides refused to renew the struggle. Manny's brigade fell back to Parsons Ridge, where we just were, and Starkweather's troops retreated to the west. While Manny's attack helped the Confederates secure a tactical victory at Perryville, Starkweather's stand saved a third of the Union Army. Bloodied in victory, some units lost over half their command. The Confederate Army soon marched out of Kentucky, never to return again in strength. Well, kudos to Kentucky for preserving this battlefield site and keeping it in such great shape and having good signage that describes the action. I wasn't familiar with this battle at all, but when you stand there and you read it and you can see the hills and can visualize the troop movements and where the fences were and the cannon were located, really brings it to life. I don't know how well I've captured it on the video, but for me personally, standing here and looking at it, it's pretty neat. So this is the Union Monument to the valiant soldiers of the Army of the United States who bravely fought and heroically fell in the Battle of Perryville, October 8, 1862. So I visited now high water mark of the Confederacy in the east, which was Gettysburg, and the high water mark of the Confederacy in the west. I am going to sit down for a couple minutes, chill out a little, get on my motorcycle and head up towards Ohio. This is my last planned stop in Kentucky. I got here at 9 o'clock
And I'm leaving at 11:15, a couple hours. It's a very pretty part of Kentucky with the rolling hills, the green grass. And Route 68 headed east. They describe this as a scenic Kentucky byway. Got a fair amount of travel on 68. Horses of Kentucky. Off the scenic road and on the US 127 headed due north. Green grass, fencing. Doesn't that seem like quintessential Kentucky to you? This is US 62. Really good riding. Curvy roads, little elevation changes. Be careful on the blind curves. Car snakes. Gotta be a little bit careful. It's warm enough. It could be slippery. 74 degrees. GPS asked me earlier whether I was okay with tolls, and I said yeah on this route, and it looks like it's going to actually try to take me on a ferry across the river into Ohio. Yeah. So hopefully the ferry is operating, otherwise I may not be as close to my destination as I was hoping. But I'm game if it's running. Rather a slow-moving ferry. I'm going to be here for a few minutes. The Augusta Ferry, motorcycle's $3. I can swing that. Ferry ride's always kind of fun. The Ohio River, and I am crossing into Ohio. That's interesting. He's got the tugboat on a hinge, so he swings it around on the hinge in order to get to face in the appropriate direction once he's away from shore. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I love ferry boats. Thank you. Glad you did that. Have a good one. All right. The rest of my ride to Grant's birthplace. I'm in Ohio, southern Ohio. I think Cincinnati is to my west, maybe slightly north. It's been a great ride today. Jeez. But US 19 was really good. I had to pay attention like the entire time because it was windy and didn't want to go over the center line, and there was like no shoulder on it for most of it, so it was pretty intense riding. A lot of fun. Paralleling the Ohio River on my left to Grant's birthplace. 18th President of the United States.
It's interesting. This house where he was born became a traveling memorial after his death in 1885, and it was moved to Cincinnati and then moved by rail car to Columbus. And on the 100th anniversary of his birth, they decided to move it back here and rebuild it. So they took it apart in pieces and brought it back here after an absence of nearly 50 years.
Amazing man, Ulysses S. Grant. He only lived in that house as a baby a year and a half before they moved slightly east of here, about half an hour. Unfortunately, that museum where his boyhood home was is closed Mondays and Tuesdays, so there's no way I can get there. The docent here offered to contact the docent over there and have them open it up specially for me, but I can't really ask somebody to do that. So I'll just have to save Grant's boyhood home for a different trip. I am 20 minutes out from a grocery store. I have not made reservations at this, I think it's called East Fork State Park. I'm going to try to do walk-in. Nice little downtown. Batavia, Ohio. East Fork State Park Campground.
It's almost 6 o'clock. I got my camp set up. Get a better angle here. East Fork State Park Campground. I'm in the Loop A, which is the equestrian center, but all the horses and people are gone. So I got this whole loop to myself. Nice site. Smells a little bit like a stable, but it'd be fine. And it's time for dinner. Tonight for dinner, I've got a shaggy dog roll, which is tempura shrimp, imitation crab, avocado, spicy sushi sauce. I had something similar to that a few days ago, and I really liked that, so I'm trying it again. Banana, some Hawaiian sweet rolls. It's always, the small packages are always good for single or double serving. I'll probably save 2 for the breakfast. Dr. Pepper. And for dessert, this looked really good, although it's a little mushed at this point. It's a devil dog with fudge icing, 770 calories. But who's counting? So you might ask, why am I here at a equestrian site? I ran into a staff member coming in and asked for a recommendation. She actually said here because the restrooms are in the nicest shape and because all the equestrian people have left, we should have a nice quiet evening tonight. And so far that is true, other than the fact that there's a main drag. You can see a car driving by right now. I'm up near the front of the campground, and so there's going to be a little bit of traffic as people are leaving this evening, going back for the weekend, and maybe some coming in as well. But as far as the loop is concerned, you can see that it's completely empty other than my tent. So it should be a nice quiet sleep, and the ground is pretty level there. So I'm pretty happy with the site. Dinner's over. It was really good. Camp is all set up.